a good night. But good nights have been hard to come by for Bradley Beal or the Wizards these days, and last night was no exception. Yes, Beal scored 47, including 6 three-pointers to go along with 6 assists and 4 steals. But the Pelicans' Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram each dropped 32 themselves to hand the Wizards yet another loss. Washington now has the worst record in the NBA, and there are a lot of reasons for that. The franchise has been more wrecked by COVID issues than any other team. Starting center Thomas Bryant suffering a devastating season-ending torn ACL, and trading John Wall for Russell Westbrook has not, at least so far, paid off. But the bottom line result is that Beal, the NBA's leading scorer right now, keeps turning in spectacular performances, and the Wizards have not been able to turn that into any momentum. Here is what Beal has done in the team's last 6 games, and look at the win-loss column next to each effort. Now you can zoom out to the past 2 years overall. Washington has lost all 10 of the last 10 games in which Beal has scored 40 or more. That's the worst such streak ever in the entire 75-year history of the NBA. So it's probably not a surprise that toward the end of last night's game, the cameras caught Beal looking pretty fed up. He would later say he was just upset about this particular loss. He added he wants to be more careful about his body language. But then his wife tweeted this, quote, "sick of it," fueling speculation all over again that Beal might indeed be exasperated enough by the whole situation to ask for a trade. So what is Brad really thinking? Here was the man himself after the game.
We have to be better defensively, accepting those challenges, stop turning the ball over, getting our guys back healthy. So it's a lot for us to do in order for us to really turn this thing around. But our confidence is still high, like G said. We can't have the mindset of being 3-11. Come Friday, we got another tough one.
In a quick second, are you frustrated?
Is the sky blue? My man.
So Beal is frustrated, but as you can see there, still sounds pretty committed to trying to make this work. And I know our first guest today, Scott Brooks, just as frustrated by all those numbers I read off as Brad is, and also frustrated by the fact that forget any regular practices, Scott, you have barely been able to get your team in one place so far this season. So welcome in. We really appreciate you being with us today. And I just want to start there to give some perspective to why it has been so hard to win basketball games of late. You guys went through a stretch of 6 postponed games due to COVID. But even before or after that, you and I talked about a week ago, it's been hard to even know who's going to be on the roster day to day, right?
I agree with you, Rachel. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and the sky is blue. We're all frustrated. And I know Brad. Brad is a winning basketball player. He's been as competitive as any guy I've ever coached or even played with. And he's frustrated like we all are. And all family members are, all of our families. We're invested in this. And it's been tough. These are things that we cannot control. And it all started basically with that Miami game. That morning, Russell Westbrook was going to be out with a quad injury. They told me, Brad, about an hour before the game that he's going to be out because of contract tracing. And then a minute into that game, Thomas Bryant hurts his knee and he's out all year. And then after that, it seems like every other day we had a player in the protocol, health and protocol with the COVID. And it's like 7 players there. And we didn't practice for like 9 days. Didn't even see our guys. I only saw them occasionally in the parking lot when we were doing our testing.
Oh, wow.
and then when we did practice for 3 days, we only had 8 guys. And then we start the trip on a three games in 4 nights. Brad has been leading us, and unfortunately, a lot of the things that happen to us we can't control. But we do have some, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We should have maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 guys back next game. So that's good to hear. It was, we got into our trip last night, like 4 a.m., and I could not wait to get to the practice site. I get to see those 5 or 6 guys practice. So things are going to be looking up. But yeah, frustration, everybody is. We all are.
Yeah, and look, I know you're as aware of the numbers as we are. I know you guys dive into those even more deeply. The effort that Brad is turning in, he's not just putting up these incredible performances. He's positive in plus minus, which is almost impossible given what else has been going on. I mean, it's crazy how efficient he has been, and yet it is not translating into winning. What conversations do you have with him along the way to keep him engaged in that situation?
I just keep telling him, keep leading us. it's hard to lead a team that's, with all the things that has happened to us, but he has, and to his credit, he has led us, and he's, like I said, he's a winning basketball player. He impacts winning. We're not winning right now, and if we were, he would be in the MVP talk right now. But he's a guy that believes in what we're doing, and we just have to keep chugging along. And I think our guys are understanding that. Like I said, we're going to have some guys coming back. Things are going to be starting to look up for us, but Brad is a big part of what we do, and I couldn't ask for a better guy to coach.
Yeah, I mean, he is the NBA's leading scorer right now. And as you note, he is so team-oriented. He is loyal. He doesn't pop off and cause a lot of problems for you that as a coach you have to come back and try to fix. And that's the kind of guy that, frankly, a lot of teams want. The NBA is a competitive business. Other teams are not just sitting there feeling bad for you guys, what you've been through the last couple weeks. What is it like to coach in an environment where there are probably 25 other organizations out there that would love to have Bradley Beal on their team and are frankly hoping things in D.C. blow up to the point he requests a trade?
Boy, I tell the guys all the time, nobody feels sorry for us. Nobody. The only guys in our locker room that cares are the guys in the locker room and our families. And, Brad, like I said, Brad is a winning basketball player. I love coaching him. He's one of the best guys to be a franchise player on the court and off the court. The guy does amazing things in the community. But like I said, he would be an MVP talk if we can get some wins, and we will. We got our guys coming back, but he's done a great job of leading us during these difficult times. And like I said, nobody's ever done this before. I mean, you can't prepare for this. COVID is real. It's not a hoax, and it's real. I'm just glad all of our guys are coming back healthy, and then we're ready. The next couple of games, I think we should have a nice little rhythm. We're going to have 15 games in February to make up some of these games that we've missed, but Brad is a winner, and I can never say that enough. But I enjoy coaching him. He's like the perfect guy for a franchise to lead a franchise.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, no one's ever been through this kind of situation before. Who knew, Scott, that you'd get to a hotel at 4 a.m. and all you would want to do was just go to a practice court? But that is the situation we have found ourselves in. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it, and best of luck in this next stretch.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys. So that is really the Washington perspective on things. But I do want to get to the larger league perspective and also what's going on going forward with Bradley Beal. How long can this situation hold? So we're going to bring in now our senior NBA insider. We're fortunate to have Adrian Wojnarowski with us today, too. So, Woj, what can you tell us from the Bradley Beal side of things?
Well, Rach, I talked to Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports. He's Bradley Beal's agent yesterday evening, and he told me that right now Bradley's focus and his focus with the Wizards is just on trying to get this season turned around and trying to get this team on track. And I think Beal, when he signed that extension, adding on a couple years onto his deal. Remember, he's under contract next season, 21-22, has a player option for 22-23. He knew that there was going to be a period here that they needed to see growth, and that he wanted to see, I think, where the Wizards could go as an organization. John Wall was coming back. Obviously they brought in Rui Hachimura. Thomas Bryant, that was a significant injury, losing him for the season. This isn't the team they imagined going into this year. But the one thing about Beal, and I think the relationship he's had with that organization, is he's not impetuous typically with what's going on, and he has been extremely loyal there. I think people were surprised when he decided to do that extension, given where the team was. Now, the trade deadline is March 25th, and so that's less than 2 months away right now. And there's been no indication, and you talk to other teams who are all over the league monitoring the Beal situation closely and looking for any inkling to think that he might be coming available. And teams typically will know before anybody else does. Before we even report it, they will know that there's an opening there, and none of them sense that now. And so I think for Beal, listen, things change, but right now, trying to get this team back on track. But there's no question, I think his future, certainly his long-term future, Rach, is very uncertain there. And I think even once we get to the trade deadline, if he starts to think about what is my future here, is that something you want to address at the trade deadline in the middle of a pandemic? Or do you want to address it perhaps in the off season when you can see a broader landscape of what the league looks like, what the future of the Wizards look like? And I think those are all things that Beal and Mark Bartelstein are going to have to weigh together.
I love that behind-the-scenes insight, because I think fans sometimes think, oh, we're stirring stuff up or asking these questions. We start talking about stuff after the teams start talking about stuff, and it is one of the number one topics of conversation, right, among other front offices, is what is going to happen with Bradley Beal, because he could be such a game changer to the balance of the league. That's how big a deal this is as a part on a team that already thinks it might be headed for championship contention. Woj, what are the teams that are having those discussions most intensely and just waiting for something to change in the Beal Wizards dynamic?
Well, there's not a team in the league who wouldn't love to find a way to add Bradley Beal. And even look back to the James Harden talks. I'm not sure every organization felt they were equipped, they were a fit for James Harden. No one denied his talent. But would James Harden want to stay here? Would he fit in with the guys we have? Are there the relationships there that might be needed going in to make it work? Do we want to give up all these assets for a player who, could walk on us? All those questions. I think with Beal, I think there are a lot more teams who who believe that you could just fit him in with other great players, and he'd find a way. He'd add to your culture. He'd add into your environment. And certainly on the court, a player at 27 years old who, still has, who's very much in his prime.
Yeah.
I think for teams like Golden State or the Denvers, teams who have assets, who are contenders, but also when they're healthy, but also have, let's say if you're Golden State, you've got that Minnesota draft pick. If you're Denver, you've got a great young player in Michael Porter Jr. You got an all-star in Jamal Murray in the backcourt. Now, I'm not saying they would do it, but you look at those teams and say they'd have enough to get in the conversation, and that's going to be the decision for teams all over the league. Of course, the Lakers and Clippers would love to be able to get involved in that, but do they have the draft picks? Do they have the young players it would take that would top a package from some other teams? Maybe not. And so, but you're going to see it will be a frenzy if and when, Bradley Beal gets on the market, and he will have a say in where he goes because of his contract situation. Unless a team is just willing to do a trade, hope to convince him to stay long term, they would have him under contract next season. But that's pretty risky for somebody who might be having to give up you will be giving up multiple first-round picks, probably your best young player. So I think those are all considerations for teams, but boy, I don't think there will be many who aren't going to make a call